So, Rohan, before we started working together, how was your body feeling and how was that leaking into your training and day to day life?
Yeah, I would say overall my training was very inconsistent before I'd met you and I kind of got familiar with what you were doing. I had some days that were really good, some days that were not so good, and it was hard to pinpoint why. And when you'd wake up in the morning, it was always kind of like gambling on, how am I going to feel today? Am I going to be able to push it, or am I going to not be able to do anything? And it was just frustrating. Like you just never knew what you were really going to get when you woke up in the morning. And I had a good athletic training history. I thought I really kind of knew a lot of the good like prehab mobility type things, and I was doing what I thought were sort of the standard stuff that was going to keep me ready to go. And yeah, I think you kind of opened up my world to how much more I could have been doing, and just how many layers there were to this, and how much I was not aware of in my own body and in my training.
So, you've always trained hard and took really good care of your body. I mean, doing different modalities to try and stay sharp and recover faster and things like that. And then, even with your training, very strategic, by the book, and just everything on point. So, that being said, why do you think that although you were doing all of that, you still felt like you weren't exactly where you wanted to be and things weren't operating exactly how you wanted it to?
I feel like it was a couple things. I think first was that I didn't do a very good job of listening to my body. I think I'd actually trained myself to dumb down the signals that my body was trying to give me. Um, playing college sports and things like that, you're always kind of taught to push and go harder, and that like you're not really supposed to have lighter days. But I think there's some positives to thinking like that for sure, but then there's negative effects too, where you never really let your body recover, or if your body's trying to tell you something with an ache or a pain or the very early sign of a potential sign. I think I dumbed out the noise and ignored that stuff, and then that led to longer term issues that could have been avoided if I'd listened in the first place. I think that's one part of it. And then maybe sort of a corollary to it was I didn't really know how to address some of the really foundational issues. Like, I figured, oh, I lift weights, I sprint a lot, I play basketball. It makes sense that I'm going to wake up and be tight. Like, I just thought that was normal. So I think I normalized a lot of things that were byproducts of my training because I thought they were normal. So I think for me, like, even though I was doing a lot of really good things, I think the ratios or the intensity or degree to which I was doing them was probably too much. And I didn't listen to the signs that could have helped me tone things back and maybe replace some of that effort or time with MYM type modalities that could have made the journey more sustainable. It had a lot of great highs and great moments, but yeah, it came at a cost.
So, that being said, you normalizing that tightness, normalizing that pain, was that something that you sought solutions for, or was it something that, just got to a breaking point and then that's when you were like, oh shit, I need to fix this?
I think initially I thought it was really normal. Like stretching, foam rolling, hitting ice baths, saunas. Like I just that was part of my routine in college, even in high school. So I never really thought much about having to continue to do that stuff. I just figured that was part of being an athlete. I think it changed for me when it was just painful to do certain things in regular life. Like getting up out of a chair if I'd been sitting and working for a while and like I really locked up and was stiff, or getting up out of bed in the morning and you put your foot on the ground and your foot or Achilles is just in a ton of pain. When regular life started to take a hit, and it wasn't just, oh, I'm tight or I'm sore, but it's like I'm actually having trouble going about my regular life. That's when I kind of realized like something here is this can't be right. I'm in my early 20s. That just doesn't make sense. And like, sure, like I'm not training as a pro athlete, fine, but I still dedicate a lot of time and attention to my body. Like, there's just no way that this is the best that I can be doing or feeling.
So, what were the things that you tried leading up to Mind Your Movement?
I feel like I tried everything. In college, I was big on foam rolling, on stretching, heat therapy. I thought I took pretty good care of my sleep, a lot of different nutritional principles, making sure I was hitting macros, getting protein, whatever, kind of coming at it from a lot of those traditional angles. Um, and yeah, I mean, I never really thought about being able to go any deeper than that. I think those kind of foundational, kind of traditional areas were all I'd ever been exposed to. So I tried to max those out to kind of the full extent of my knowledge. I'd worked with physical therapists for certain injuries that I had, mixed experiences with that, some better than others, but ultimately never really felt like I ever got 100% out of pain. But again, because so many people around me were dealing with that, and there's just such a stigma around like, oh yeah, like as you get older, pain is normal. I never really thought too much about it again until it got into like my day-to-day life, and I was just forced to ask more questions and dig deeper.
When we first spoke, what made you realize that this was something different? And what really made you feel like Mind Your Movement was what you needed?
So, what I always was interested in with your training and your page when I first discovered it was very clear that you were a high level athlete and we played the same sports in track and basketball. And I mean, anybody could tell from your videos or from your online marks that like you were a very advanced athlete. But the things you were kind of promoting or talking about in your content were so different from what I'd seen before. Like, I'd never seen a guy with a 40+ inch vert, pushing breathing and posture like to this extent. I never even heard anybody care about that stuff, let alone a really high level athlete. So that was interesting for me because it was like I am training for these exact athletic qualities, and this guy's promoting stuff I've never really thought of as important, but because he had the credibility in what I wanted to do, it really made me want to listen. And then you were posting different exercises and movements that I just had never seen before, emphasizing again a lot of different cues that I hadn't heard before. You're doing everything barefoot, which I hadn't seen before. So there was just a lot of novelty, and I didn't understand it initially, but it was enough to pique my interest to want to go in and dig and learn more. And kind of the more I looked into your content and spoke with you and everything, I realized that there was kind of a whole nother world that I was kind of about to get hip to.
So, again, a lot of guys think they're doing everything right until they realize that they're missing deeper inputs. So, what really stood out to you in our first couple of sessions?
Great question. I think for me, it was when you were giving me kind of the hands-on coaching and cueing through what I thought would be very simple movements. They became extremely challenging. Like doing a single leg stand, doing a bear crawl, things I'd thought I'd done a million times, kind of with the new intentions, the principles. I mean, I was shaking like I'd never worked out before. And I felt parts of my body turning on that I literally didn't even know I had. And I remember having just really unique soreness and awareness of certain parts of my body that it had felt like it just been dormant for eons. And that was really cool. I think it was this realization of like, wow, like if these really simple movements done this way can get me feeling like that, then I imagine this is kind of step one of a potential journey. Like it's pretty exciting to think about what I could potentially learn or accomplish if I continue on this track and eventually am able to incorporate the same type of thinking and cueing and intention into much more, kind of challenging or complex movements. But it was those first sessions. I felt the difference. Like it was pretty obvious. For those who don't know, we actually used to live together in Fort Lauderdale for about 6 months, and we had a really nice gym in our apartment. And this was the first time I'd extensively trained with Steph, and I mean we were training pretty much every day together. And the first couple sessions we had, I remember doing really simple movements, like one I remember in particular, seated cable row. The way that this dude was repositioning my rib cage and telling me not to let my ribs flare out, and like pressing my feet into the machine and keeping my the string pulling the top of my head up, I had mid back soreness like you couldn't believe the next day, and we were barely moving any weight. So again, like the proof was in the pudding. There was no denying it, and it didn't. I'm not saying the next day I woke up and I was jumping 40 inches in the air, but it definitely started to infiltrate into my general athletic activities too, and I did start to feel better. So again, proof is in the pudding.
So, you're balancing a lot of things right now. So, career, training, obviously, recovery, other life things outside of that. What specific changes have you seen since implementing our system?
I think the way I think about it is it feels like it gave me a toolkit for living life just in a better way. Like if I'm, if I'm feeling a little achy or in pain in certain parts of my body, I feel like I have really good tools to be able to go out and fix that problem myself. I don't get the stress or anxiety anymore if my body's kind of acting up a little bit. I feel like I know what to do, and I feel very empowered by that knowledge. And I think that was probably the best thing, is just knowing like it's like this toolkit or playbook that you always have in your pocket. So I think that is probably the number one point. Um, I would also say maybe thinking about, kind of general biology, like my energy levels overall feel smoother. I feel like I don't have to worry so much about kind of like, oh, like, this is my very, very peak window of the day. And like at these hours, I'm kind of useless. Like I used to have really high highs and really low lows. Now it feels like I kind of play on a bit of a smoother just playing field throughout the day, which is really nice. Um, I also feel like it's had a huge impact on my calmness and peace with life. I think a a byproduct of being like a hardworking, high performing individual. I feel like I'm sure, again, if you're watching the video, you probably relate to this too. Is you can accumulate a good amount of anxiety and stress kind of throughout your day, throughout your work. By trying to do your best, you're putting a lot of strain on your body. I feel like now I can still achieve really high levels of output without necessarily stressing myself to the same degree. Maybe part of that is like, okay, you're sitting in better positions, you have better control of your breathing, your nervous system is just more under control. But I also think like, one thing that I really grew to appreciate from the training was just understanding how my brain and my body are connected. And I feel like as I got a lot of the tightness out of my muscles and out of my fascia, it also got tightness out of my mind too. And I think there's kind of been more clarity of thought. Just, kind of body awareness has also been kind of coupled with kind of improved mental awareness and just overall understanding of my being. And I feel like it's made me a more peaceful person, and that's helped me go through life in just a much more enjoyable way.
Who do you think this system is best suited for?
I think your system works really well for people who already care a lot about fitness. They have either played sports before or pursued different athletic goals before, and this is already an important piece of their life. And they want to really consciously dedicate the time to getting the most out of it that they can. And they understand that this can also be a vehicle for improving other avenues in their life. So seeing this not just as like physical therapy or a road to, being able to, achieve like this one very specific goal and nothing else, but as a method for improving your overall quality of life and kind of using athletics or training as a vehicle to a much bigger destination.
All right, so for the guy who's still stuck in tightness and recurring injuries and, just lackluster performance, what would you say to them?
I've been there before, and it's not fun. And I would say if you feel like you really have tried everything, and again, you're probably watching this video for a reason, there's really no reason to not explore a completely different approach, right? At the very worst, you're just going to come away with new knowledge and a new perspective. And at very best, you're going to walk away fixing all these issues that you're coming here to try to resolve. So there's really no downside. And I would highly encourage you to kind of make the commitment. And again, I'm sure if you're watching this, you're already on the fence about it. And I hope that my experience can be a good data point on how positive the results have been, at least from this one individual.
All right, Rohan. So a lot of people watching this are, doing big things, founders, execs, running their businesses, whatever, building an empire. So everything that they do needs to have a very clear ROI. How would you explain that for yourself through doing Mind Your Movement?
So it's a great question. I think we're all familiar with the concept that time is money, and thereby, if you can make your time better spent, more efficient, and get more out of your time, the ROI is infinite, right? Especially as your time gets more and more valuable as you're advancing through your career, whatever you're trying to build, and the opportunity cost of not having that time well spent gets higher. You need to be very cognizant of that. So I think for me, Again, I talked a lot about sort of that clarity and peace of mind and kind of increased focus, more maintained energy levels. All of those have contributed to my time just being better well spent and me being able to get more out of a minute or an hour than I was able to in the past, and not having to kind of rely on these peak windows or hoping that I was going to have a good day. Even now, like if I don't get the best night's sleep or if I'm traveling and I'm on the road, and I've done a lot of that. A big percentage of my professional experience does entail being on the road and having to be high performing in different time zones. And when you're not always in control of your diet, your sleep, you're in hotels, knowing that I can still wake up and I have a lot going for me biologically, and I don't need perfect conditions to thrive. I mean, that is just tremendously valuable. I think a huge source of stress I've seen from my other coworkers is knowing that when they do have these kind of really busy periods coming up where they can't control a lot of these variables in their life, it brings a lot of stress. But I know that because of these internal systems that I've built, even when the external variables around me are not going to be maybe what I want, I'm still going to be fine. So it makes that time tremendously more valuable. It gives you your headspace back to focus on what you should be focusing on. So for me, it's been great. I think the difference when I was kind of a couple years out of school, early in my career as an analyst and associate, compared to now, it's a night and day difference. And I really feel kind of the power that comes with everything that I've been able to learn through the system.
All right, appreciate you, Ro. Any last thoughts?
So one thing I think that's been really great about this experience of just being in better control of my body is it's given me more confidence to try different types of athletic activities. And I think one of the really beautiful things from the last couple of years for me was being able to safely attempt new sports, and just have new life experiences, make new friends through that, meet and develop new coaching relationships, develop different athletic qualities. And I think having that kind of, again, that toolkit or playbook that I talked about, it's been very powerful, again, not just for knowing that if an injury comes up that you can take care of yourself, but also knowing that you can try all these cool and fun different activities and kind of continue to get better at them as you get older, and it can be a vehicle for all sorts of different things in life. Like I've gotten into boxing recently, which a couple years ago I probably wouldn't have done because of the back issues that I was dealing with. And boxing is a really important part of my life now. I've developed some great friendships through it. It's been great for my health. It's been a ton of fun. And I think it's opened up a whole new world to me of different kind of combat sport opportunities and other things I could be doing. And I feel like it's just the first of many new sports that I'll be experimenting with in adulthood, and feeling confident that I can do it pain-free and safely. And there's something extremely powerful about that.
Appreciate you, Ro.